Today is a bit of a treat. It's mainly for myself because I'm driving the wonderful Aston Martin DBX, but I hope to put together a very nice video, even though time is ridiculously short. So let's go and I'll tell you what this first Aston Martin SUV is all about. In true Aston Martin tradition, the buttons for the automatic transmission are placed on the dashboard, and D is quite far away from you. I have to extend my arm all the way to press it. Not that it's a problem. Whoa, listen to the very expensive sounding indicator sound. So these are my first few minutes in this car. I have read quite a bit about it, and I'm super excited to drive it. First acceleration run. Okay, it's pretty quick. So, the DBX. It is not only Aston Martin's first SUV, but it is also the first four-wheel drive Aston Martin ever. And Aston Martin is over 108 years old, so it's gone quite a while without all-wheel drive. The key to success nowadays in the automotive industry is to sell SUVs, because that's what people are looking to buy. And even though Aston Martin has traditionally only made two-door cars with the occasional sedan, it has had to adapt, and it has created an SUV. And I can tell you already that it's an amazing SUV. And as I've been rambling on in so many of my videos, I don't really like SUVs that much. But this one is so special that you cannot deny it has a lot of appeal. This car is powered by AMG's 4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine, which in this application makes 550 horsepower and 700 newton meters of torque. It is fed to all four wheels, and there's an electronically controlled differential in the center of the car that shuffles power between the two axles. The car is rear-wheel drive only or rear-wheel drive biased most of the time, but when it loses grip, it can send up to 50% of the power to the front axle. Aston Martin quotes this vehicle as being able to hit 100 kilometers per hour from standstill in around 4.5 seconds. But from the driver's seat, it honestly feels a bit quicker than that. That's probably something to do with the decent level of torque. It's a pretty big car. Its footprint is comparable to that of a Range Rover, although I think it might even be a bit bigger than that. And unlike some other SUVs that have been developed to be very good on tarmac, Aston Martin has done the job right, and it has also made the DBX rather good off-road. I'm not gonna have time to test it off-road, and I wouldn't have the balls anyway, because I wouldn't want to scratch this expensive optional paint. And it weighs around 2.2 tons, so it's not a light and small vehicle, even though the exterior kind of looks like a Porsche Macan, but a much fancier Porsche Macan. I think there's a definite resemblance between these two vehicles, and it's obviously Aston Martin flattering Porsche, acknowledging that Porsche has made a good design choice. So since the engine is a Mercedes unit, you would imagine the transmission is a Mercedes unit as well. And you would be right. This car sends its power to the wheels via Mercedes' 9-speed automatic transmission. Obviously, it has a special software and tuning to make it feel different, and as does the engine. For instance, Aston Martin has changed the V8's firing order to give it a slightly different sound than it has in AMG cars, and also to make the power delivery just that little bit smoother and more befitting of an Aston Martin, which is a luxury product, a cut above a Mercedes. And there is a bit more Mercedes parts sharing in this vehicle. For instance, this stalk for the indicators and the wipers is lifted straight out of a last generation Mercedes. So not even the new one. As is the infotainment control method. This is also quite old and dated by modern Mercedes standards. But then again, this vehicle is almost 2 years old already. And when it was launched, Mercedes was just rolling out MBUX. And the infotainment itself is basically just a reskinned version of the Mercedes system. So what is it like from behind the wheel? Well, you are cocooned in this two-tone leather interior, which is optional and it's fantastic. Everything feels superb. The headliner is Alcantara. You have this huge, expansive panoramic roof that doesn't open, but it's standard. And there's an air of quality and also sportiness about this vehicle. Unlike other Aston Martins, while the design is very similar to other Aston Martins, the console is higher and it works with the higher seating position. You don't really sit as low as you might expect in the DBX. The window sills are quite high and they do trick you somewhat into thinking that you're sitting quite low, but the driving position is actually pretty high. It's nowhere near as low as you can get it in a Porsche or a BMW SUV. But it's not too tall. You do get used to it and it feels suitable for this vehicle, to be honest. The gauge cluster is also digital with pretty good graphics. I wouldn't say they're the last word in digital gauge cluster graphics, but it's all right. I mean, you don't see any pixels. It's just not quite as sharp as the best systems on the market, but you can forgive it that because the vehicle itself is so special. Believe it or not, this car is amazing for rear passengers. I set my seating position for myself. I am 183 centimeters tall and I have ample levels of knee room. Trunk space is also impressive. It's 635 liters. It's not quite the biggest in the class. I think only the Porsche Cayenne has a bigger trunk out of all these sporty type SUVs. But this one in the Aston Martin is really, really roomy as well. It's not quite very deep, but it goes back a long way. And you can also fold down the rear seat. You have some electric releases back there. The seats do not rise and fall electrically though, the seat backs. How can I talk about seats when I have this engine that I can control with my right foot? But I'll try to focus and be professional about it. Okay, so I've done the practical stuff. Oh, no, I haven't. This car has a practical side too, because people buy SUVs to drive them every day and they need to cater for their everyday needs, like carrying shopping, your friends on occasion, and the occasional more voluminous item. And this car can do that, and you can also lose quite a few of your belongings in here. I mean, it has decent sized door pockets. There's this space under the center console, which has a dedicated smartphone holder. I'm not sure if it's a wireless charging pad. I'll check that out later. There are also airplane style compartments behind the seats that have a very quality feeling leather strap that you pull on to open them. It also has smaller door pockets in the back. The center console cubby is very, very deep. You have two cup holders here that you can hide, and I think that's a very nice touch. In the rear there is a center armrest that also has cup holders, but I don't understand why Aston Martin chose to plonk them in the middle of the armrest itself, so when you're resting your elbow on it, you might fall into the cup holders. Other manufacturers do a folding set of cup holders in the armrest, much better. You do feel very special sitting in this car. It is a combination of the higher driving position, this Aston Martin badge that is one of the most prestigious in the world, probably among the top 3. I'm not going to mention what they are, but I think it's a very powerful badge. And now I'm just cruising at about 90 kilometers per hour. I'm going to close that rear window that I had opened to let some of the exhaust noise in. And it's a very relaxing and serene place to be. Regarding the exterior of the DBX, I think Aston Martin has done a tremendous job. Brilliant. It's an amazing, amazing looking vehicle. And I am a self-confessed SUV hater. I don't like many of them. Most of them, actually. I don't like them. I would never consider owning one myself. But when they are this good and this special, they force me to reconsider. The front end has the typical Aston Martin look with the big grille. It's actually the biggest grille ever fitted to an Aston Martin, because this is the biggest Aston Martin ever. So it's proportional, it needs it. I think this vehicle's best angles are dead on looking at it from the front and rear 3/4 view. I think those are its best angles. But let's stick to the front first. So biggest grille on an Aston Martin. It also has the biggest Aston Martin badge fitted to an Aston Martin. This vehicle has the optional carbon finished badges and also the Aston Martin script on the back. It's finished, well, it's actually made out of milled carbon fiber. It looks really good. You can opt to delete the Aston Martin script on the back if you so choose. But I would leave it there because it's quite classy and many people might not know what this is, and the big writing on the back will help them. This vehicle has a very aggressive engine hood with creases and dips and swoops. It's very nice. It looks really good. And this car also has optional blades. So there are 2 shiny blades that stick out where the standard hood has like some plastic trim or some cheaper looking trim. These shiny wings are optional. If you look at the vehicle from the side, you can see the fastback roofline. It's not quite as pronounced as the more traditional coupe SUVs like the BMW X6, the Mercedes GLE coupe, or the new Porsche Cayenne coupe. And the latter, I think, is the best looking out of the 3 that I mentioned. But this looks way more special than those. And even though it's quite a tall vehicle, Aston Martin has managed to hide some of the height, that's a tongue twister, by giving it a very deep crease in the side of the doors. The doors, I also have to mention, they go all the way down, so they cover the sills, and you won't mess up your trousers when you're climbing aboard the car, especially after you've done some hard off-roading in it, which it can do. The doors are also the typical Aston Martin doors. So instead of just opening outward, they also open upward a little bit. For its lower, sportier cars, Aston Martin says this feature is designed to prevent you from curbing the bottom edge of the door. But as we know, there are many automakers that have signature style doors. And it's nice to see that Aston Martin has retained theirs, even for this big SUV shape. Both front and rear doors go up when you open them. So it's not just front passengers that will feel special climbing aboard this car. Yeah, because everybody will notice the door goes up a little bit, or the very unique hydraulic mechanism that you can actually see in the back when you open the door. And it not only kicks the door upward, it gives it the unique look, but it also holds it in place wherever you leave it. The door handles are typical Aston Martin door handles, so you push on the front part and the rear part pops out and then you click it open. There's nothing special about that. The release for the hatch in the back is all the way down under the edge of the hatch. It's hidden. And it opens electrically, and the button you use to close it back up again is borrowed from Mercedes, and it's an older style Mercedes button, but you won't notice it. In the trunk you also have a set of very nice feeling buttons, 2 sets actually. The ones on the right allow you to fold down the seats, while the ones on the left allow you to raise and lower the rear suspension in case you need to lift something heavy into the vehicle. What I am not so keen on is the design of the rear bumper, the lower part. It could have been simpler and better, less flashy, I think. And I also don't like the exhaust tip solution that Aston Martin chose for this vehicle. Like, you should celebrate the fact that it has an amazing V8 under the hood. And while the exhaust sounds good, which I have to say is a feat considering this car has a particulate filter, it's one of the better sounding vehicles that have a particulate filter, because in other vehicles it's almost entirely killed the sound. And the trim around the exhaust tips is it kind of looks nice. I understand why they did it, but I would have gone for something more classy and timeless looking than that. But again, if you get this car and you don't like those, I'm pretty sure you can upgrade them or change them tastefully for some aftermarket tips. And the surrounds, you can probably get those 3D printed. Okay, so what is this vehicle like to drive? Well, I'm cruising at 90 kilometers per hour as I was previously, and it's pretty quiet. There's some road noise that makes its way into the cabin, but since this car rides on very, very wide 22-inch wheels, you can understand where some of it is coming from. And you can really hear the exhaust in the back. This car has the optional sports exhaust, and it sounds amazing. Select that option if you're buying a DBX. It's totally worth it. I have to also mention the steering in this vehicle. While I wouldn't call it the sharpest one on the market, it is amazingly well judged. It is still very, very sharp, especially for an SUV, but it doesn't make the car feel jumpy or nervous. It's progressive off-center, which I think is important. And when you throw the car into a corner, it almost sends back a little bit of feedback. It does somewhat communicate what the front tires are doing, which is pretty impressive considering it's a big, tall, and heavy SUV, this thing. This car also rides on very sophisticated suspension. It gets air suspension as standard. It also has active anti-roll bars that genuinely do eliminate most roll, even when you're doing some spirited cornering. And it's not just the active anti-roll bars that are doing the roll mitigation, because they work in conjunction with the adaptive dampers. And the result is, while the ride is not the firmest in the world, this is a pleasant and often floaty SUV. When you throw it into a corner, particularly when it's in Sport Plus mode, it grips and stays impressively level. This vehicle is remarkably good at being thrown into corners. It just takes it, and it feels like a tall and very sorted four-door sports car. Oh, and I must also mention the fact that this is also the first Aston Martin with adaptive cruise control. The technology is probably borrowed from Mercedes, although they don't say that directly. And it can also keep its lane. It has 360-degree cameras that are really useful because you don't want to scratch this. I wanted to say the price, but I'm going to save it for last. Very expensive SUV. It's really hard to focus on saying the things that I have to say about this vehicle when it's so characterful. Thanks to that amazing engine, of course. Okay, so we're pulling onto a quieter forest road. This calls for sport mode. Sport plus mode. If you want to put the vehicle in manual mode for the gearbox, there are no separate buttons that I can see here. All you do is pull on one of the paddles and it seems to stay in manual mode until you press the D for drive again. Okay, the road is clear. I think we can do a launch. Left foot on the brake, floor the gas, let it go. Woohoo! That's 100. Yeah, it's properly quick. It doesn't rip your face off, but it's quick enough. I mean, if it was any quicker than this, it would become dangerous. This vehicle might be dangerous in the wrong hands anyway. This is a tremendous car. Great SUV. And I don't like SUVs. So for an SUV to be great, in my book, it either has to be extremely practical and good off-road, or offer little compromise for on-road driving, which is where you are going to spend your time, most of it anyway. And the DBX looks amazing. I have already fallen in love with its on-road manners. I've seen that it's amazing off-road. It's wonderful to be aboard of. If you have over 200,000 euros to pay for an SUV, then you need to look no further. If you have that kind of money to spend on an SUV, I think you should give Aston Martin your money. I mean, the British automaker is really trying with this vehicle, and it's an amazing effort. I mean, it has not made an SUV just for the sake of it. The automaker truly wanted it to be a good vehicle, and it is. So it has to be commended for that. That it's not just a compliance SUV. It's its own vehicle that's fully fleshed out, and it's good. It's really good. And you should buy this vehicle if you want to support Aston Martin. Because even though it makes some of the world's best sports and GT cars, it needs volume SUV sales in order to survive. And to build this vehicle, it's even made a new factory in Wales to build it. So it created an entire factory for this vehicle, anticipating the rise in demand that it will cause. And it's just like with Porsche, that started making the Cayenne in the early 2000s, and it is widely acknowledged that the Cayenne is the vehicle that saved Porsche. So hopefully this vehicle saves Aston Martin, because it's a century-plus old automaker that is steeped in tradition. It has made some of the world's most beautiful cars, some of the world's fastest cars, some of the world's most exclusive cars. And if you want them to keep making the DBS, the DB11, the Vantage, and all the other sexy two-doors, support them by paying over 200,000 euros for this vehicle. It starts at 180,000, but this one is way more than that. Way more than that. So to finish off the review, I have arrived at a set of twisties. I've put the car in Sport Plus. The suspension lowers all the way down. The transmission becomes more aggressive. So let's see what all this technology that Aston Martin and AMG have put into this vehicle adds up to. I like that it doesn't shut up. I like that it doesn't shift up for you like some Mercedes models do. So even though it's a Mercedes transmission, it can let you make a mistake. Okay, let's see this flowing left-hander. The gearbox is not quite as responsive as you might like it, but it's not bad. This car is amazing. It's an SUV to convert SUV haters. And that's a tall order. My GoPro says that I've been recording for over an hour now, and I'm sure I've missed so many details because I'm just so excited to drive this car. I think we have reached the logical conclusion of this video. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did driving this amazing DBX. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do it. It would be really nice. And until I see you again, take care.